guys? We're back again. Oh, and you have your new hat on.
Yeah.
It's the black version of his sexual tyrannosaur.
Exactly. This is my new black boonie hat by Rothko. I could wear this one to the club if I wanted to. I could do whatever I want. It's the black one. The other one I have is tiger stripe.
Yeah, so you need a black one so it'll go with the rest of your
have whatever I want.
wardrobe.
That's right.
I don't know
this shit here has been well documented to increase levels of toxic masculinity. You put that shit on.
It's just soaking right into your bald head right there.
Toxic masculinity starts to fucking...
The toxins are just seeping into your brain.
That's why it's sexy.
Do you think?
That's why it's sexy.
All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Charlton Heston, who I don't particularly think is sexy, but you probably do.
No, I like Charlton Heston, but he was a man of his time.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, he was kind of like a boomer hero, boomer and beyond. Guys that were even, because I think he was older than a boomer.
Boomer and beyond. That sounds like
Beyond.
That sounds like the lamest department store ever.
Yeah. He had his own way, of doing things, and he had good movies for the time. He had stage presence. People respected him. He was fucking playing Moses and shit. Him and Yul Brynner.
And he kind of plays like a Jesus-y type figure in the Omega Man.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not really a Jesus-y figure, but you know what I mean. There is a lot of Jesus.
He gives his life
in this
to save mankind by his blood, which is, and he kind of dies in a crucifix position. But he was atoning for his sins, basically, because he caused a lot of this shit.
It's all Charlton Heston's fault.
Yeah.
Do you hear that?
Yeah. Well, it's a good movie. It's a deeper. It's not just a. It's not just an action movie. It has some deeper motifs going on. It's well thought out, and it's based on fucking the book was I Am Legend.
Yeah.
And then
loosely.
And then Last Man on Earth had Vincent Price, which is evidently closer to the book.
Yeah, it's much closer.
This is the same story. It's just kind of rebooted, and they put a couple of twists in it. If you listen to our other program when we covered the first movie, in that one he meets a girl who turns out to be a spy for the vampires, basically, and they end up killing him. This one, Lisa isn't a spy, but she used to be with the family, and when she didn't turn, she felt uncomfortable in there because her and her little brother Richie, they didn't look like the family. They didn't go albino, so they were started to get real suspicious of them. So they snuck out of the family. So she was ex-family. They were infected, and she eventually did flip, and she went back to the family, but she wasn't a spy. And he ended up saving her too. But it's just a good flick. Good flick. It has a lot of good motifs. The idea here is Charlton Heston plays Neville. And he was an Army colonel who worked at the biowarfare division. And the unit that he was working with, I don't think they made this weapon. I think it was between the Chinese and the Russians that made it, wasn't it? And
there was a war between that was the thing, and that was another thing they changed a lot from the book. In the book, they kind of it's implied that it was just like a natural virus that came from bats or something like that. Whereas in this one, it was very deliberate. It was germ warfare. But that kind of went along more with movies of this period. Because I feel like late 60s, early 70s, you had kind of all those
Cold War.
Paranoid type thrillers. So this was kind of an early example of that, where they made it someone's fault. Humans did it on purpose.
Well, this movie's definitely from the Cold War. And the nuclear annihilation, the mutually assured destruction was a played out theme already, and you couldn't have this story in a nuclear amongst a nuclear backdrop. It could only work if it was biowarfare. So that's what they went with.
Well, and the woman that co-wrote the screenplay, it's a husband and wife team that did it. The woman that co-wrote the screenplay had a PhD in chemistry. And so she's like around this time period, you know, like I said, when paranoia was kind of rising, and she was thinking a lot about germ warfare, and she's like, maybe we should inject like the germ warfare thing, because that would like wipe out a bunch of people at the same time. Like I said, the book was kind of more, it didn't go that much into it. It implied that it was just like a natural virus, because it was more interested in exploring you know, the loneliness and the sort of like inversion of like the hero villain roles, you know what I'm saying? Like that's more what the book was about than like the scientific kind of stuff.
Now that book and the first movie that came from it is really the genesis of fucking the zombie apocalypse concept, because Night of the Living Dead is a ripoff of the first movie of this. It's definitely, when you see it, what's it called? Last Man on Earth. When you see Last Man on Earth, you see where Romero got all those ideas. All right, they're both good movies. Night of the Living Dead's probably a little bit better, but Last Man on Earth is a lot more complicated than Night of the Living Dead. The scope's bigger. This is just a retelling of Last Man on Earth. It's the same story. It's just that the order and certain things are different, and the backdrop's a little bit different. It was updated to make more sense, say like in what, 72 or 71? 71, right.
Well, the whole thing about the family in this one, that's like a complete movie invention. The book isn't, it's not really like that. Yeah. Like I said, in the book, they're just vampires, and they're kind of like vampires, but sort of like zombie-like. Yeah. They can kind of talk, but they're not real eloquent, or they didn't form a cult or anything like that. You know what I mean? So this is kind of like,
well, they got that from the movie. They got the movie from Last Man on Earth. Remember the half vampire?
Yeah.
Fascist,
I know. Yeah.
Italian fascist, fucking Mussolini black shirts. It's those guys. It's just that they've been rebooted as kind of like a medieval,
like Luddite monks or something.
Yeah, medieval satanic cult that's kind of based on like that Extinction Rebellion type of mentality, to where, you know, fucking we got to stop all technology and science, and you know they're trying to go back to like pre-industrial era, and it's like Torquemada and the Inquisition, which I thought was great. Now my friend fucking Con of Aztlan down in Mexico, he thought it was goofy. He thought it looked like the Jawas, but I didn't really get that, because it predates Jawas. I saw this before I ever saw Star Wars, and so I didn't make that connection. And you know, having a strong European background, you immediately see that as religious monks, you know?
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
what that is.
Clearly they're supposed to be monks.
Yeah.
Because they have like the black monk robes, and they're they're very kind of like...
it's a monastery.
Yeah, monastic.
Yeah.
And they don't like anything technological. They don't want anything like that.
They've taken over City Hall, and they've moved all this damn religious paraphernalia into City Hall, and it's just like this Baroque, damn satanic.
And they burn people at the stake. They burn books.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. So.
And they kind of meet up in a big old fucking chapel. It's not a chapel, it's a courtroom. But it's got... I remember seeing, didn't they have like certain things upside down, so it looked like upside down crosses, the wood panelings? Thought I saw some things like that in there.
Well, I didn't notice that, but
yeah,
maybe.
You know how wood paneling sometimes had like a cross in there? I thought it looked like they were upside down. I thought they had one of them painted or something. But I'd have to go back and look at it. It might have just been how I remembered it. But it's just kind of has, and like the font of the movie when it starts with the Omega Man. I want to make an Omega Man shirt in the Omega Man font.
Because I told him, I was like, hey, I have that font.
Yeah, it's going to say the Omega
on my
Man.
Computer.
And I'm probably going to have that fucking Smith & Wesson MK760 underneath it or something. Something that's, you know, not a photo of Hest on it, you know what I mean? Just something that's more like geometric, that would look good like in a club setting. But I want to get a shirt like that. But it's just the main theme here is Neville, when he was with his bio unit and the fucking plague started to hit America. They were working on a cure. They had an experimental batch, but it was coming too late. People were already dying. And he was trying to deliver the fucking experimental batch, and he was in a helicopter. The helicopter crashed, and he crawled out of the wreckage and found the damn briefcase of fucking experimental vaccine, and he took it. And he turned out that he lived. He never did get infected. So he was the only man that was really immune to it. And he thinks he's alone. Turns out there's these damn people that survived it that kind of mutated. They turned into these psychopathic albinos that suffered from, bouts of torpor. Torpor. And what else did they do? They did some
just light sensitivity.
They were blind in the light. And the light would just drive them up the wall. It didn't say anything about blood drinking. They just said they were insane.
They weren't vampires, they weren't dead people.
No, they were alive.
So that's another kind of thing that's different from the book and also from the original adaptation is that, like I said, in the book it's pretty clear that they're vampires. I mean, they're essentially vampires. And in the movie, they're pretty much vampires.
Yeah.
You can have the disease and still be alive, but usually they're kind of dead and then they come back to life. Whereas in this one, it seems like they're just alive. They're just mutated humans that they don't have any vampiric tendencies other than being light sensitive.
Yeah, and
that's
everybody else,
pretty
much everybody else is dead. It killed you. It normally just killed you on the spot as soon as you caught it. But these people got mutated. And over time, they kind of became like this cult, this kind of like something like cross between Extinction Rebellion and Antifa type of deal, and Tokomata, all kind of mashed together. They kind of speak kind of like in Marxist kind of terminology in a certain way. You just got to watch the movie. It's well thought out. And they find out about Neville that Neville never turned. He never got the sores and never turned, so they hated him. They blamed him for it. Because they knew he was a scientist.
Well, they're like, you're the last relic of the past, and the past that caused the world to come to this past.
And they're trying to erase him because they're trying to erase. They say he's obsolete and that he's got to go. So Neville, he's in his house that he had lived in, in L.A. before the disaster even happened, and he's like, they're not gonna push me out of my house, I'm staying right here, and he's turned it into a damn
all my
castle.
cool shit's here.
Yeah. He brings even more cool shit.
All of my scotch, I have like years and years worth of scotch in there. Which is probably what I.
He's got the whole place rigged up, man, with a fucking elevator that he can shut off, and fucking security gates, and floodlights, and generators, and fuel, and in the bottom he's got Jeeps, military Jeeps, and fucking motorcycles and sports cars and all his shit, you know what I mean? And upstairs he's got a laboratory and a bedroom, the kitchen, and it all looks like a damn museum because he's getting all the good shit from all around the city.
Yeah, he goes to museums and swipes all the art.
Got all kinds of classic submachine guns, MP40s, fucking Smith & Wesson MK760s. He's got a fucking BAR with a fucking active fucking IR fucking night scope on it. Got all kinds of cool shit. He's got a fucking BAR. He's got two M250 belt-fed guns on the fucking roof, sandbags. I mean, it's a fucking castle. And every day those damn mutants come out there and start trolling him. Neville! Neville! Come out, Neville! All that kind of shit, And he's like, oh, fuck. He's trying to play chess with himself. He's going crazy because he's by himself.
Yeah, so Slasher Fred's like, there's no phone ringing, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he thinks he hears the phone ringing.
He thinks he hears the phone ringing.
All the phones are ringing.
There is no phone ringing. There is no phone. It's classic memes in this fucking movie, man.
I mean, not quite as good as, get your hands off me, you damn dirty.
Yeah, but close.
Or, you blew it up.
You blew it up. There's a lot of that shit.
Damn you all to hell.
Then he so every day he's got to fucking drive them off, and they won't use any technology because it's against their religion. He's calling him, he's a user of the wheel and all that kind of shit.
Like I said, it's almost like Luddites. You know what Luddites are, right? A long time ago. Well, now the word means pretty much anybody that's doesn't like new technology or is scared of new technology.
Yeah.
But it came from, I can't remember what year it was. It's a few centuries ago, I think. But it was this group of people who were weavers, I think, or tailors or something like that. Yeah. And when everything, when the Industrial Revolution happened and all these machines came in, they would go around busting all the machines because it was taking all their work away. So they were really, really into not using any machines or technology.
Yeah. So he spends 2 years fighting these guys.
3 years, I think. Is it?
At least 2 or 3.
It's 2 or 3 years, I can't remember.
And he can't figure out where they live. So he's doing grid searches every day, trying to figure out where their nest is. He's just on this damn campaign and fucking annihilating them. And they show a lot of scenes where he's going through old hotels looking for them, and he'll find a dead one every now and then. Sometimes he'll just see one of them running. He'll shoot at him with sub gun. Real good fucking submachine gun. Real good submachine gun scenes, you know. There's one that he uses fucking quite a bit, and he has a dive light underneath it that's fucking detachable. And for gun guys know what it is, but for you non-gun people, I'll tell you why they're using that. Movie shot in 1971. Back in the late 60s, when the U.S. Army was fucking around in Vietnam, we weren't officially supposed to be there. So they were taking Special Forces guys and dressing them up like international mercenaries and sending them in there to do shit. Okay? But it was illegal. You couldn't give them American weapons, so they were buying the fucking Swedish K, which was a good submachine gun made in Sweden. Sweden found out what we were doing and says, we're not going to sell you one of those submachine guns. So Smith & Wesson made a kind of a copy of it. It was improved a little bit, called MK760, Smith & Wesson. So they're using that gun in the movie because it's kind of symbolic in the gun scene at that time. That's a Special Forces fucking kind of commando submachine gun. It had a certain mystique to it. It was good. It was a good submachine gun. Kind of like a 9mm, like improved fucking grease gun, but better. Like a Swedish K. So he's using that thing to just try to hunt him down. And there's just a lot of good scenes of him with that gun. I liked it. Let's see, what else can I say about it? The theme here is that he could have left the city. All right? But he didn't. He stayed to fight these things. And there's kind of a deep reason why. Before the war, he was a scientist and a military man who was dedicated to, he was the kind of guy that defended his civilization with force. Well, the civilization shrank down to just him and his house. So that's what he's doing. If he wasn't fighting them, he wouldn't have a purpose. He just would have been alone, totally alone. So it was better to stay there and fight for what he believed in instead of just running out and being insignificant and dying in obscurity, in absolute solitude. Because at least if you're fighting an enemy, you're not alone. So that's what's happening here. Well, one day he finds out that there's another group besides these mutants. There's other people that are infected that never flipped. So he falls in with them. And it's like another crowd. It's a biker guy with a chopper who was forced out of med school in his senior year because the fucking civilization collapsed. And then his right-hand man is this black chick who's like an ex-Black Panther. And they're taking care of all these kids that they've saved.
And she has a little brother named Richie.
Who's turning.
Yeah.
Right. And Neville says, my blood is a serum. I could probably save him. And he saves Richie. And, she thinks this is great. And they start having like a relationship because she wasn't having a relationship with the biker guy, even though they were about the same age. I'm guessing he was having a relationship with one of those girls in the late teens that was with him, but they didn't really get into that. Because remember, some of them girls must have been 17, 18, 19. When you say?
Yeah, I can't remember. There was just like a bunch of. It was just like a bunch of.
So you don't really know why they weren't hooked up, but she hooks up with Neville. When Richie gets better, he tries to talk sense into Neville. He's like, you're wiping out all these people, and they're infected. They're just regular people.
Yeah, they're just sick people.
Right, they're just sick.
You should try to help them.
Why don't you go down there and help them and give them some of your blood, and you'll make. And he goes, nah, that'll never work. They're vermin, basically. So Richie gets kind of like high-minded and I guess altruistic, and he goes down there. He tells Neville where they were fucking nesting up. They were living in City Hall. And Neville's like, really? Well, Neville finds out that he's fucking missing, and he's, where'd he go? Fucking Richie went down there to go talk to the damn family, the zombies, not the zombies, but the mutants. And Richie shows up, fucking goes, Neville, his blood can heal you. We can go back to like you were before, and we'll be okay. And he's like we were before. That's the guy who's running it, Matthias. Matthias is the cult leader. He's badass. He's good. He's a really good character. And in the movie, before the apocalypse hit, he was a newscaster.
Yeah.
So he had good oratory skills, and people recognized him off of television. So he became the leader. And Matthias is like, oh, like we were before. Yeah, okay, fucking.
That's kind of our whole thing where we don't want to.
Reason they didn't want to hear.
That.
Yeah. So they strung little Richie up and did something bad to him. You just see blood coming out of his mouth. You don't know exactly. I was under the impression that they stabbed him to death. I think, didn't they have him? Wasn't he kind of crucified with a bunch of spikes?
Something like that. You couldn't really tell because they mostly just showed like his face.
Yeah, they mostly wanted to shadow
looks...
it out. It's kind of in the shadows. They don't want to be too graphic because it's a kid. He's maybe what, 12?
Something like that. Yeah.
Remember when I was a little kid and saw that on television? That blew my mind. That was the first time I ever saw a movie where a kid got killed in it.
Yeah,
that's like, whoa, real intimidating.
I'm still actually kind of surprised that they went there with it. But
well, Neville was on his way down there. He fucking suited up. He put his fucking commando fucking blue Air Force flight suit on and his fucking colonel hat and his fucking guns and jumps in the damn Jeep and fucking fights his way through the damn hordes to try to get Richie. But he was already dead when he found him. And he was on his way out, and as he was on his way out, he runs into Lisa, and Lisa had turned.
Yeah, because they established early that so you could just turn like without warning. Sometimes it was really slow, but sometimes it would just like come on you really quick.
When they turn, they kind of become communal. They kind of become like a fucking group or hive mind in some ways. You say the family's calling me, you know. So I guess there's kind of like. They're talking about how you become kind of like in today's terminology, you become like an NPC. It's like groupthink. So she starts getting groupthink. But you're evil, Robert, you know.
I was kind of thinking, because they were called the family, I didn't know if they were making a specific reference to like the Manson family or there was that cult, I think we did a show about them, that was called the family.
Yeah. That's what they're talking about.
So they're talking about like any of those kind of cults from that time where everybody's just kind of like gets
communal
in there
thinking and fucking there's not a lot of individuality, you know. That's what they're talking about. And but he grabs her anyway and kind of saves her, but he gets killed in the big shootout. And then
he gets speared.
He gets speared. Yeah. Now Matthias had a right hand man. Name was I guess
Zachary.
Zachary. Zachary got killed before that though. Zachary was already dead, wasn't he?
Yeah, he got
killed trying to get in through the damn.
Yeah, Charlton Heston like either shot him or like threw him like out the window, and he fell down the balcony and like fell on the fence. Remember? Yeah,
he shot him up with a fucking MP40.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good machine gun scenes in it. So he ended up basically saving the survivors by his own blood. And they got him fucking laying out there.
It's very cheesy.
Like a fucking... Right.
Well, I mean, there's even more references to that because when Lisa first meets him and, like, doesn't know what his deal is exactly, she's, like, got a gun on him and she's like, put your hands out. And she's like, put your hands out like we're crucifying you or something like that. So that's, like, foreshadowing.
There's a bunch of references to, like, Neville being duelist. He's a soldier and a scientist. Like, she talks about his fucking... She mentions his laboratory, and he goes like, well, yeah, I got to keep the other side active. He's talking about the other side of himself, the science side.
Yeah.
You know? So it's got a lot of cool, like, fucking psychology in it. Kind of deeper messages. I like it. Real good movie. Classic. Now, I want to see the Last Man on Earth again. I think every time I watch these movies, I appreciate them more. I pick up more. I see little things in the background, stuff in the set. You know, certain things happen, and you can kind of see there's like a little subplot or a sub-story. It's just good movies, good writing.
Slasher Fred said there was a Simpsons Halloween episode where in one of the segments was a spoof of the Omega Man called the Homega Man. I think I might have seen that, actually, because of Homer, you know.
My only criticism of the Omega Man is, I'm looking at it for a movie of its time. The incidental music in the soundtrack in the first part of the movie doesn't fit the tone. It's not dark enough. And there's certain places where it should just be silence. But still, they got to put some kind of.
I mean, this is very much like an action movie, but it does seem like that rather than a horror movie because it's not scary. But the thing is,
it was when you were a kid.
I mean, when you're a kid, but I don't think it, and I don't even think it was really trying to be scary particularly. No. I think it was supposed to be more like an action movie, like a post-apocalyptic action movie. And I kind of feel like the score at the beginning was kind of more like. But I get that was like a problem with a lot of scores from the 70s, though. They all sounded to me. It all sounded like like cheesy nighttime soaps from the 1970s. Like, it all kind of sounded like that. Danny Rowling said, in all seriousness, no way in hell he would have survived that helicopter crash, in my opinion. Yeah, that was a pretty bad crash. You know what's crazy? I found this out today while I was researching this movie. The guy that directed this movie, Boris Segal, who was the Ukrainian-born dude, and he mostly did TV. I think he did like a handful of movies, including this one, but he mostly did TV, like Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Night Gallery, Man from U.N.C.L., shit like that. But speaking of helicopters, in 1981, the same director was working on this miniseries called World War III, and he got killed when he walked into the rotor blades of a helicopter and like got partially decapitated. That was like in 1981. Isn't that fucking crazy? I was just like, oh my god, it was just kind of like fucking Twilight Zone movie.
People have mentioned some funny stuff about this movie. Yeah, people had yellow teeth back then, including Heston, because they all fucking smoked.
Yeah,
and they didn't do anything about it. They didn't notice it.
Well, they didn't have the same. Also, they didn't have like the same kind of like teeth bleaching stuff. Like now, it's really easy to
do. Not back then. Another thing that was mentioned in there was the stunts being practical, including the motorcycle stunts. Yeah, they were good motorcycle stunts.
I mean, a lot of them you could tell that it was stunt doubles, obviously.
Or a dummy on the back. Was another one too.
Like because you could see like the wigs and whatnot. But
they were taking pretty old school motorcycles, like fucking Yamaha, fucking 450 twins and shit, and fucking running them down stairs, which not an easy task with those old fucked up suspensions. They couldn't have been a stock suspension, I don't think. Well, maybe it was. Maybe it sped up a little bit. Riding downstairs or upstairs on any motorcycle is fucking rough, especially if the wheels are too small. Going down, of course, is always easier, but to go up, you got to have a big front wheel. Yeah, and then the car stunts too. Fucking all practical. So good flick.
Danny Rowling said
a lot of fire stunts.
Yeah,
setting dudes on fire.
Danny Rowling said Charlton Heston kissing a black woman back then was kind of a big deal. It was. I think this was actually maybe, I don't think it was the first, because I mean Star Trek had done it prior.
That was TV.
But that was TV. I think this was like either the first film or the first like mainstream Hollywood film to show like an interracial kiss. So yeah, that was a really big deal. And that's the thing, like I don't think in the book, I haven't read the book in a while. I should probably reread it and like do a review on it, just because I've read it a bunch of times, but it's been like several years since I've read it. And I don't really think anything was mentioned about it in there, but they wanted to, like, the screenwriters wanted to make her a black woman because of the Black Power movement, and they just thought that was like a good thing to like insert into the movie. And they thought that would be like another source of maybe like potential conflict and tension like between the two characters.
Because they made them opposites. You got one of them a white military officer, the other one's a Black Panther.
Yeah.
So they were kind of like the opposite. One was establishment, the other one was more revolutionary.
Although the weird thing is, like, they didn't really, I mean, she said that, but they didn't really have a lot of conflict per se. It's like they kind of met and they were just kind of like, hey, who are you? And then they're like, oh, okay, I love you. You know what I mean?
She knocks him out.
Well, that's true.
With the fucking pistol and shit, and fucking uses fucking archaic fucking jive.
But, I mean,
You cool it. No,
but the thing about it is that, well, you know why, because the thing about it, and they don't go as much into this as they did in the book and the like The Last Man on Earth, is that everybody knew who Neville was. He was a legend, like, and everybody was afraid of him because, like I said, he was like, that was kind of the whole point of the book, is that he was this like mythical monster
run around as an exterminator
in the minds of so everyone was like terrified of him, and they did go into that in The Last Man on Earth. Like, one of the last things that Vincent Price says after he gets speared is, they were afraid of me, and he was like regretful, like I didn't know, like I didn't realize that that I was the monster to them. And he thought he was a hero in his own mind this whole time, like wiping out the vampires, but actually he was the monster. So that's kind of like they went more into that. They didn't really go so much into that. They do kind of like mention in this that Neville they know who he is, and that they're kind of like afraid of him. It doesn't seem like the mutants are afraid of him.
They just hate him. Yeah.
But it does kind of come up that, like, with Lisa and Dutch and them, that it's like, oh yeah, we heard about you, or everyone's kind of afraid of you because you had, like, a reputation.
They couldn't go down to the city and get anything during the day because he was running around shooting the place up.
Yeah, they did say that because they're like, well, yeah, we didn't know, like, we thought we'd get shot. So, and that was the first, like, when Lisa was in the department store and that's where he meets her, like, the first time, she's like, oh shit, like, there he is. So she's like pretending pretending to be a mannequin and stuff. Because, yeah, she doesn't know if he's going to shoot her or something like that. So she just, like, takes off running.
What was the biker's name?
Dutch.
Dutch, that's right. Yeah, Dutch is like, what are you doing down the city? Why are you running around fucking some kind of exterminator? You know, why is that? He goes, oh, they're not chasing me out of my home. And he's like, yeah, okay. Because they could have just left like they did. They had a nice, quiet place out in the country.
Yeah, and they didn't really seem all that...
out there.
Yeah, they didn't really seem all that bothered by...
Right. So
but he was just set in his ways.
Well, like I said, fucking... His fucking mindset was to have a mission. You know, and it was to protect civilization from outsiders, and civilization shrunk down to his house. So that's the last of the civilization. He's going to keep it. He's going to keep it just like it was. But he had that shit decked out. It's fucking. This movie is like a real good like survivalist fucking porn. You know what I mean? You can look at what he's got in the house and you go like, oh yeah, I'd have that. Oh yeah, I'd have that too.
I think that's probably my favorite thing about this movie is that I just love the idea. Like, I'm not saying I wish everybody on Earth would die. I'm just saying that, and I think this is appeal for a lot of kind of like apocalypse style movies for people. It's like, man, I could just wander around and I could have anything I wanted.
They got these, you know.
You can just take it.
I keep up with, you know, fucking prepping and fucking survivalist stuff and blah, blah, blah. And they got dudes talking about going to have their fucking bug out bag. You're not going to fucking bug out. You're going to bug in. Okay? And that's what Neville did. You're going to stay home. In other countries, if they fucking blow up and start fucking apart, people don't leave their own home. They stay right in them. Even if it's an apartment that they rented, they tend to stay right there. And because it's more dangerous to leave, or you can't leave, like which in some, like The Stand, it's covered in the series The Stand or the book The Stand. There would be no way to get a car out of a city because all the fucking freeways were there's a frozen traffic jam for fucking 60 miles of just empty cars. So there'd be no way to drive out of it. So you'd have to stay there.
Oh, I appreciate Linwood Slab bringing this up because this is something that I wanted to mention because there is actually a deleted scene from this movie.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, he says something like, she became pregnant, that's why the trip to the pharmacy. Yeah, well, because I remember saying, I'll tell you in a second, but because I remember saying, wait, in 1971, could you just buy birth control pills, like, off the shelf?
Over the counter.
Because... I don't, like, I never was able to do that. You had to get a prescription and go to the pharmacy. You couldn't just, like, buy. But it didn't show her, like, getting from behind the pharmacy counter. But what I was going to say was that the deleted scene, they mentioned that she was pregnant, I think, and she goes down into this kind of, like, crypt type area, and there's one of the family down there who's, like, a woman, like a mother that has a baby.
Yeah.
And so she gets, like, really upset about it because she's like, oh, shit. Like, she sees them as people, I guess.
Right.
And so...
I think I remember seeing that.
So she comes back out and she tells Neville about it. And he says, did you take care of it? Like, did you kill them? And she's like, no.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because she, like, saw herself as that. And then he kind of's like, oh, yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. You know what I mean?
When she finally turned, she looked really cool, too. Because she had white hair, white afro, and she went white. And she had that black cloak. Looked like a girl we'd see at the golf club. Did she?
Yeah.
Yeah, like somebody said, the golf club with the white contacts and stuff. Another thing that I could probably criticize about the movie, it kind of goes against the I Am Legend theme that should have been there. When Neville's doing his grid zone searches in the beginning, he mostly finds empty stuff, empty buildings, and mostly just gets clothes and shit. When he does find a mutant, it's either already dead or it's just a shadow he shoots at. That's not so much extermination. That's more like defending yourself. Because he gets jumped by them too and defends himself and kills some of them. There should have been some scenes where to show him the way he really was or portrayed out of the book. Where he'd run up on them while they were asleep and machine gun them. Yeah. Exterminating them.
Well, he staked them.
Well, in the book he did. Yeah. But in Omega Man, he would have just run up on them and machine gunned them. While they were asleep.
I think
that's what they should have done.
Yeah, but see, I think the thing about it was that they kind of went, like I said, thematically, they went in a little bit of a different direction, where they made Charlton Heston more of a hero.
Yeah, more likable.
And more likable. So, like, if you showed him, like, shooting people like defenseless people, then everybody'd be like, I don't think I like this guy. You know what I'm saying?
That's what they should have done, no.
Well, like I said, that goes more with the theme of the thing.
Because it was supposed to be dualism.
Yeah.
You know, where he was a hero in his own mind, and he was killing monsters, but he wasn't fighting fair. But neither were they. You know what I mean? And he was a legend and a monster to them, so he had to be doing monstrous shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I think I would have liked that in the movie. They should have darkened his character a little bit in that aspect. And then it would have justified why everybody was afraid of him.
Yeah.
And why even humans were afraid of him who hadn't turned. That, you know, look, he would machine gun people, infected people while they were asleep.
Yeah.
Now, he did try, it does show a scene where he tried to save an infected person. He grabs some dude, he's in his fucking robe and shit, hauls him back to his fucking garage and gets him up, beats on him and fucking tries to restrain him and gets him up in the laboratory and starts injecting him with stuff.
Well, he's like experimenting
on him. But it didn't work. He said he died badly. He never did show what happened. He just told the other guy he did die. He died badly. You see, I tried to save him. But so I guess they just said, the only thing I could take from it is that whatever he injected it with fucking got him real sick and he died. That's what it seemed like.
And that's the thing. That seemed like really... Yeah, he was trying to save that person, but he was also just like trying to experiment.
It was an experiment.
So he just like grabbed him and said, you know, I'm trying to find... So he was kind of trying to save everybody by just grabbing a random person. But like I said, unlike in the book and in the original movie, these are not undead. They're people. They're just like sick people.
Yeah, they're mutants, sick mutants. They're fucking psychopaths with fucking weird delusions and states of torpor and albinoism and sunlight to drive them up a wall. You couldn't reason with them though. You know.
Well, the ones
Richie tried to reason with them.
The ones that were too far gone, yeah. But like I said, the ironic thing was that if they had just listened for a second, like they would have gone back to their regular selves. But at that point, they were too far gone and they didn't want to. Back to their regular selves. It's just, well, like I said, it's kind of like you'd have to go in there and like deprogram all of them, just like you would somebody that was in a cult. Like before you could get them to like take the blood, even. I
think when the virus is gone, though, they kind of went back to normal. That's how I.
Well, Richie did.
Richie did.
Because he hadn't completely turned, but he had gone like kind of albino and his eyes were white and he's like, he couldn't like look at light and shit like that, but he wasn't full on.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, Richie tried to convince him to go down there and go cure them all with his blood. And he's like, nah, basically Neville goes, nah, fuck them, they're vermin. So, once you crossed Neville, he wasn't going to forgive you. But then he was good. He goes, why don't you go down there and just machine gun them all then? Don't just let them stay like that. Either kill them or cure them. And he's like, nah, fuck them. They're all dead anyway. They'll eventually die.
Yeah, that's what he said. Because, I mean, basically that's what the kid said. He's like, well, if you're not going to cure them, then just go down there and wipe them out then.
He didn't want to risk himself.
But he didn't.
Fuck him.
Yeah, he didn't do anything.
And then later when they caught him, they said they were saying, we're going to build something, you know, or this, the things that we need. That's what fucking Matthias said. And he goes, you're going to need a lot of coffins. I remember he fucking with him because he said they were all dying.
Yeah, because, I mean, they didn't really go into that. Like, I'm assuming that the virus would eventually kill you.
Yeah, they had them sores on them.
Yeah, so, but I don't really know what the timeline on that was.
Well, they were only about 3 years they were like that.
Yeah.
So, less than a decade, maybe?
Yeah. It's, I was like, it's weird because I've seen this movie so many times, and, like, every actor that's in it, I'm always kind of like, oh man, I know them from this, that, and the other thing. So I had to look up like every single like main actor that was in this, like just to see where I was like recognizing them from because I couldn't remember. Sadly, like Rosalind Cash, the woman that played Lisa, she actually died quite a long time ago. She died in 1995. I recognized her because I knew I had seen her in some stuff. She was on Good Times. You remember that show? Yeah. And What's Happening? I used to watch that with my grandma. She was on Knight Rider. She was on General Hospital. She was in Clute, which Zach is always is bugging us to review, which we will get around to one of these days. She was in Tales from the Hood. That was like only a year or two before she died, I think. And let me see what else. And we were trying to figure out like Richie because I'd seen him in a bunch of shit too. That actor's name is Eric Laneuville. And I think he started out like on Sanford and Son, like he was on a few episodes of that.
I think he was from Screen Back of the Screen.
No, he wasn't. He actually, probably one of his best known roles was he was on that show St. Elsewhere. You remember that? He was on that for a long time. He was in Black Belt Jones. Okay. He was in Death Wish. Love at First Bite, A Force of One, that Chuck Norris movie. He was in that. And then like after that, like in the 80s, he actually he's still in a movie every now and then, but he actually went into directing. Okay. So he's actually directed a fuck ton of TV, like LA Law, Quantum Leap, Doogie Howser, NYPD Blue, ER, Monk, Gilmore Girls. So yeah, he's done like a fuck ton of stuff. He still acts every now and then, though.
Said this was his first acting job, and he had a scene with Charlton Heston that said it was blowing his mind. He's a kid,
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I wanted to look up Paul Koslow too. He was the guy that played Dutch. And they had a little bit, because we have this on DVD, and it has like a little introduction where they have like a couple of the actors like talking about it. And he's dead now, actually, Paul Koslow. He died a couple years ago in 2019. Okay. Now, he was a German. Because I thought, like, he sounded kind of American in this, but then, like, every now and then, like, his accent was just, like, I was like, I wonder where that's from. He's German, that's why.
He looked totally different when he got older.
He did,
I didn't recognize him.
He was in Vanishing Point. Yeah. He was in Mr. Majestic, which we just reviewed not too long ago. Yeah. He was in Rooster Cogburn. That was that John Wayne movie, I think.
Yeah, I remember Mr. Majestic.
Yeah.
I mentioned it. I said, that's a dude from Omega Man.
Yeah. And he was on a fuck ton of TV, too. He was on The Incredible Hulk and Rockford Files and Quincy and T.J. Hooker and A-Team and all that kind of stuff.
Seeing it this time, I realized what a cool character Dutch was.
I liked him a lot in this.
Cool character.
I liked him a lot in this.
Yeah. And there's a cool bike that he was on. It was on an old chopper. He had a fucking Thompson submachine gun strapped to the back of it. He had a couple of fucking Colt single-action Army 45s, fucking cross-draw holsters and shit. Fucking biker boots. And a damn World War I aviator hat. Wasn't that a World War I aviator hat, I think, or something like that?
I think it was, yeah.
Something like that. Throwing bombs. He was making bombs and shit. Called it the Mad Bomber.
Yeah.
Fucking blowing shit up. And he was a scientist. It was a good character. And the way, when you looked at him, he looked like a real young David Carradine from like Kung Fu. He kind of reminded me of that. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the guy that played Zachary, I knew I had seen him before. He actually died in 2004. He was also in Soylent Green, which also had Charlton Heston in it.
Which we his honky paradise.
Yeah, he called it his honky paradise.
Which
that's what it was.
That's what it was. He was up there in his honky paradise.
That's really funny. He should have made, like, Charlton Heston should have made a sign like over the door that said, or it should have been on the welcome mat, welcome to the honky paradise.
My honky paradise.
That was like really funny. But yeah, so I think we watched Soylent Green not too long ago, but I don't think we ever did a review on it.
Yeah. See, Zachary, brother Zachary is what they called him. He was like Matthias's right hand man, like his chief lieutenant. And he was getting pissed. He's like, "Why don't you let me go down to the National Guard Armory and I'll bring out a howitzer and I'll blow him right out of his honky paradise." And he's like, "No, we're not gonna do it that way." So they're making him do it with a damn catapult. Shooting fucking
and they were
flaming like, really? Fucking round things, flaming balls.
But then later on, like when they actually were doing like the siege on his apartment, they were starting to use.
Well, that was just Zachary.
Yeah,
Zachary said,
was
"Fuck
just like,
that.
fuck it, I'm just gonna use the same shit. I'm fighting fire with fire."
Yeah, he crept up the side of the fucking building. He wasn't going for Matthias's bullshit. He's like, "We're gonna get this shit over with." He climbed up the side in his robe and shit, and pulled out a fucking 1911 45 pistol. Fucking came in, and he got into a struggle, and fucking Lisa was there, and fucking Neville pulled out. He had a fucking German MP-47 machine gun, fucking blew him away, and fucking he went flying off the balcony and fucking landed on the wrought iron fence. Got him. That was a cool character too, though. He was the fucking Zachary was the only mutant that had any sense. He was like, "Let's just blow him up. We got the National Guard Army right there.
Let's just get this over with. Nobody will, you know."
It's like, no, he's the last user guy, of the wheel. Yeah. He's the last guy that had any sense. Yeah.
Bleardo Dude says, Pookie treats are made out of people.
Yeah.
Oh my god. 789 Tundra says, love how Hess knew the lines in the movie about Woodstock. Nope, they don't make them like that anymore. Yeah, he must have gone in there. Although I will say, like, I guess he would just go in there and show it like whenever, because that was the movie that happened to be left in the theater.
That's what was there, yeah.
And so he'd watch it over and over. But the funny scene near the beginning where he goes in there and he watches it, and then he comes out and he's like, oh shit, it's almost dark. I'm like, yeah, that's how Sunset works, bro. Yeah. It's like you'd think that after 3 years he would have his shit together enough to be like, hey, don't want to sit in the movie theater all day.
And he was slipping.
And then come out, I guess. Maybe I guess they were trying to like imply that he was
going
like,
crazy.
Kind of losing
Well, don't you remember? He runs out and then he goes, fucking hears the phones ringing and all the phones in the city are ringing. And he goes, there is no phone, damn it. There is no phone. And he stopped and he's like, okay. Stop that shit.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, there's no phone.
God damn it, brain.
Yeah. I know how he feels.
Wait, you hear payphones ringing all the time?
I can relate to it. There is no fucking phone, bro. It's just your imagination.
So now every time you get like really mad or frustrated, you're just gonna go, there is no phone.
There is no phone. Yeah.
That's pretty
There is no phone ringing, damn it. There is no phone. That'd make a great shirt.
Everybody be like, what?
What the fuck is that? Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Linwood Sly says, damn, Hutch passed. Wow, thank you, Jenny. Wasn't aware of that sad news. I wasn't either because, like I said, we had the DVD and there was a little bit of a introduction on there that had him and had the guy that played Richie, and they were talking, and he looked like, old, but I was just kind of like, well, it's possible he could still be alive, but...
Khan jumps in there making fun of Jawas. They were not Jawas. We already covered that shit, man.
I will say,
that was Tokomata, man, and the monks.
Here's the thing, though. I kind of wish that the robes... I don't have a problem with the robes. I just kind of wish the robes looked more like monks' robes that were like more matte, because they look kind of like shiny.
Some were. They were all different.
Yeah.
I think they made them. I think they made them out of things that they found, because a couple of them were brown.
That's true.
Other ones were matte, and some of them were shiny with shiny stripes in them.
That's what I was thinking. Those were the fabulous members of the family. They were just kind of like, all I had was this like shiny material.
I think it was just blackout curtains that they found and shit that they found and were making it. They weren't factory made. They were making them by hand.
Well, yeah, but it's just, I thought that was kind of funny. Well, it just makes, I guess it made them like seem a little less menacing. I'm gonna be less menaced by a mutant in a shiny cloak than I am in one that's like a regular monk.
Well, I think that was that was Brother Zachary that had the one that was fucking shiny.
He's like, I gotta have some style. At least it didn't have sequins on it. Right?
Yeah, he was kind of shiny.
That would have really undercut the menace, wouldn't it?
No, I mean, most of them looked pretty good, especially when they were off in the darkness and you could see them eyes glowing.
Rhinestone rose on the back or some shit.
Remember that one shot though when they're doing the trial and someone back there, and it looks like their eyes are glowing. It was actually the reflection of the sunglasses, but it looked like... Because they all wore sunglasses even in the dark.
They wear their sunglasses at night, just like Corey Hart.
Well, they were blind.
Yeah.
They were blind in the light.
I did like those white contact lenses, and I was thinking to myself, I'm pretty sure, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in 1971, they didn't have like the soft contacts like they have now. They were glass. Hard contact.
Yeah, they were glass.
They were usually glass.
Yeah, and all this shit was super expensive, special order. Only Hollywood could get those.
Because I remember hearing about some movies, like back in the day, like Hammer films and stuff like that, where, somebody had to have red eyes or some shit, and they're like, you could only wear the contacts for like a couple minutes at a time because they would just cause your eyes to water because they were so thick. Yeah. Like, they're really, really uncomfortable. So I was thinking that like, maybe... They look kind of like modern ones in this movie, but,
Marilyn Manson made them bitches famous when they had the soft ones.
Jesus Christ, when we went out Friday night, was there, like, he played, like, 3 Marilyn Manson songs. Yeah. I'm just like, why all the Marilyn Manson? I mean,
What it felt like.
I guess. I mean, it was fun otherwise, but I was just like, again with the Marilyn Manson.
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything on this one, huh?
Yeah, I think we did. Like I said, we did this movie. This was one of the first movies that we ever reviewed, like way back probably in 2016. Yeah. But because we did Last Man on Earth, we decided that we were going to do a Mega Man. So tonight we're going to watch I Am Legend.
Yeah, we're going to watch I Am Legend.
And talk about that, because I don't think we reviewed that.
I Am Legend has Will Smith in it, and I saw it once, but I want to see the director's cut. They say the director's cut's better, and I'm hoping that he slaps a bitch in it. If he fucking slaps a bitch in the director's cut, I'll be.
I know what both endings are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I haven't seen both endings, but I've seen like a comparison of both endings, like that someone was talking about.
I think fucking Chris Tucker gonna make a surprise appearance.
Neither one of them's like the book though. But like I said, I kind of wish that somebody would just adapt the fucking book for Christ's sake. Mm-hmm. I mean, Last Man on Earth is the closest. Last Man on Earth is pretty close. It has a slightly happier ending than the book. I mean, the book's ending is like grim. You know what I mean? But nobody has really made, even though they've made 3 adaptations of this, nobody has made anything exactly like the book, like with the same themes or anything like that. Everybody always like felt the need to like change stuff up. Now, Richard Matheson, he didn't really like Last Man on Earth. He thought it was a little cheap or whatever. This one, he didn't really like this one either, but he's like, he didn't really care as much because he's like, this is like so different from my book that I basically don't even give a shit.
Not the same movie.
You know what I mean? It's really not. It's a similar story, but it's not. It's very, very loose. It's a very loose adaptation.
Well, they didn't want to have vampires in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess they thought that was like a little bit too
cheesy at that time.
Cheesy.
At that time, yeah.
I guess.
So they had to have an explanation of what it was, so they went with mutants.
Yeah. Yeah, Kanavatsan said just The Last Man on Earth would be a good movie like the original. Yeah. And like I said, just make it and give it the depressing ending like the book has. Like, I wish somebody would have the balls to do that instead of like always doing a happy ending. Like, oh, we have a vaccine and it saved everybody. In the book, that didn't happen.
Sly's asking about Sunday night. There is no live podcast on Sunday night.
It's Friday. Well, Friday night is the
Friday and Wednesday.
Yeah, Friday night's the sidetracks, and then Wednesday night's the main episode. Then the rest of the time we just do movie reviews usually. But yeah, we did a show Friday night.
Yeah.
For a couple hours.
Yeah, Con, see this one again and don't watch it. You know what I mean? You can't watch it on the side when you're working. You got to pay attention to it. It's pretty good. And when I shut it down, we talked more about it earlier on in this broadcast. We brought up some
this
stuff.
Broadcast.
Yeah.
All right. So tonight we'll be watching I Am Legend. Oh, I wanted to say I don't think Oracle is here. Is she? I'm pretty sure it was Oracle that recommended on Friday night. She recommended the series. It's a History Channel series, but it's on Hulu, called The Food That Built America. And we watched the first episode last night, and that shit's phenomenal. Yeah, so thank you for recommending that, because we're gonna watch like the rest of it.
It's kind of like The Men Who Built America about the
I think it's the same
robber barons.
Yeah, I think it's like the same producers, but it's all about
the food industry,
the food guys, like Heinz and Hershey and all.
And she brought that up because the other day I was talking about how people take for granted good food, that you had to understand how that came, because I pretty much know the history, so it's just repeating what I know. But it's a fun watch, and there's some more information in there that I hadn't considered. But no, without that corporate fucking food, mass delivery food industry, there wouldn't have been America as you know it.
Yeah.
You had to feed it for it to grow. Without that fucking food, without corporate food, there would have been no cities. Not big ones.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't supply them.
Yep. Speaking of food.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's eat. All right. So thanks everybody for dropping by. Have a good rest of your weekend. And we will see you guys again tomorrow.